The worst decisions always start with good intentions. That's what Ethan Cole told himself as he sat alone in his truck outside the lakeside coffee shop, engine running, one hand on the gear shift ready to bail. A blind date. At 32 years old, covered in engine grease he couldn't quite scrub off, raising a kid solo. He had no business being here. But Marcus wouldn't shut up about it, and Ethan was tired of fighting. So here he was, about to walk into what would either be the biggest mistake of his life or something he couldn't even begin to imagine. He should have stayed home. But before we dive in, if you stick around to see how this story ends, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. Now, let's get into it. Ethan killed the engine. The silence that followed felt heavier than it should have. Through the windshield, he could see the coffee shop, one of those trendy places with floor-to-ceiling windows, and people who probably paid $7 for coffee that tasted like burnt water. Not his scene. Never had been. He checked his phone. 2:47 p.m. 13 minutes early. Bad sign. Showing up early meant he cared. And he didn't want to care. Didn't have the bandwidth for it. A text from Marcus lit up the screen. "You there yet, or did you chicken out?" Ethan typed back. "I'm here. This is stupid." 3 dots appeared immediately. "It's not stupid. When's the last time you did something for yourself?" Ethan stared at that message longer than he meant to. When was the last time? Couldn't remember. Every decision he'd made in the past 4 years had been for Dylan. Every choice, every sacrifice, every late night and early morning, all of it centered around a kid who still couldn't tie his shoes right, but somehow knew exactly which questions would gut you if you weren't ready. "Just go in. 1 hour. If it sucks, leave. I won't bug you again." Ethan doubted that last part, but he pocketed his phone anyway and climbed out of the truck. The air smelled like pine and lake water, clean in a way that made the grease under his fingernails feel more obvious. He'd scrubbed his hands 3 times before leaving the house, used that orange pumice soap that stripped skin along with oil, and still, there it was. Evidence of what he was. A mechanic. A guy who fixed things, not someone who sat in coffee shops making small talk with strangers. The shop door chimed when he pushed through. Inside, it was exactly what he'd expected. Exposed brick, hanging Edison bulbs, a chalkboard menu with drinks he couldn't pronounce. A girl behind the counter with a nose ring looked up and smiled the kind of smile that meant she'd been trained to smile at everyone. "Welcome in. Just grab any seat. Someone will be with you in a sec." Ethan nodded, scanning the space. Afternoon crowd was light. A couple in the corner sharing a laptop. An older guy reading a newspaper like it was still 2005. A woman by the window, alone, looking at her phone. Not her, he told himself. Probably not her. He picked a table near the back, away from the windows. Sat with his back to the wall, an old habit from nowhere in particular. Just felt better seeing the room. His phone buzzed. Marcus again. "Don't forget to smile. You look mean when you're nervous." Ethan didn't respond to that one. A waitress appeared, younger than the girl at the counter, wearing an apron covered in coffee stains. "Hey, you meeting someone or just hanging out?" "Meeting someone." "Cool, cool. Want anything while you wait?" "Coffee, black." She wrote nothing down, just nodded. "You got it." The woman by the window stood up. Ethan's stomach did something stupid, but she walked past him toward the bathroom without a glance. Not her. He checked his phone. 2:51. 9 minutes. The coffee arrived faster than expected, and it was better than he thought it'd be. Strong, not burnt, the kind of simple thing done right. He wrapped both hands around the cup and let the heat sink into his palms. Stupid nervous habit. Dylan did the same thing with hot chocolate, clutching the mug like it might float away if he let go. Thinking about Dylan made the whole thing feel worse. He'd left his son with Marcus's wife for the afternoon, told him Dad had to run some errands, which wasn't technically a lie, but it felt like one. Dylan had just looked at him with those big eyes, too much like his mother's, and said, "Okay, Dad, don't be gone too long." Ethan took a drink of coffee and burned his tongue. The door chimed. He didn't look up right away, playing it casual, eyes on his phone like he was reading something important instead of just staring at his home screen. But when the waitress's voice went up half an octave with that customer service brightness, "Oh, hey, you must be, Ethan's eyes flicked toward the door, and there she was. Victoria Hale, though he didn't know that name yet. She wore jeans and a cream-colored sweater, nothing flashy, hair pulled back in a way that looked effortless, but probably wasn't. She smiled at the waitress, said something Ethan couldn't hear, then scanned the room with the kind of calm that came from practice. Her eyes landed on him. She didn't wave or do that awkward half-raise thing people do when they're not sure. She just walked over, and somehow that felt worse, the certainty of it. "Ethan?" He stood up too fast, chair scraping loud against the floor. "Yeah, hi." "Victoria." She extended a hand. He shook it, aware of the calluses on his palm, the rough skin that came from working metal and not wearing gloves enough. Her grip was firm, confident, not trying to prove anything, just present. "Thanks for coming," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. "I know blind dates are, well, they're a gamble." "Yeah?" He sat back down, feeling like he should say more but not sure what. "Marcus set this up. My friend. He's persistent. Sarah set it up on my end. She's the same way. Persistent." Victoria smiled, and it wasn't the polished kind, just real. "I almost bailed 3 times. I almost bailed in the parking lot. But you didn't." "But I didn't." The waitress reappeared. "Can I get you something?" Victoria glanced at the menu on the table. "Do you have Earl Grey?" "We do." "That'd be great, thank you." The waitress left, and silence settled between them. Not quite awkward yet, but getting there. Ethan took another sip of coffee. Victoria folded her hands on the table, fingers interlaced, and he noticed she wasn't wearing any rings, no jewelry at all except small earrings he barely registered. "So," she said. "Mechanic, right?" "Yeah, got a shop on the east side. Nothing fancy, just cars, fixing them. Do you like it?" It was such a simple question, but nobody had asked him that in years. People asked if business was good, if he was busy, if he'd fixed their cousin's transmission yet, but not if he liked it. "Yeah," he said slowly. "I do. There's something about it, taking something broken and making it work again. Clean problem, clean solution, most of the time." "Most of the time?" "Sometimes a car's just done, no saving it, but you try anyway." Victoria nodded like she understood something beyond the words. "I get that. What do you do?" She hesitated for half a second. Ethan almost missed it. "I work in management, corporate side of things. It's a lot of meetings." "Sounds boring." She laughed, short, surprised. "It can be, but it pays the bills." "Fair enough." The tea arrived. Victoria wrapped her hands around the cup the same way he'd done with his coffee, and something about that small mirrored gesture made the room feel less foreign. "So," she said, "Marcus tell you anything about me, or did he just throw you in blind?" "He said you were smart, normal, and wouldn't murder me." High praise. Low bar. She smiled into her tea. "Sarah told me you were a good guy, single dad, worked hard. That's about it." "That's pretty much it," Ethan admitted. "Not much else to tell." "I doubt that." He didn't know what to say to that, so he didn't say anything. Victoria didn't push. She just sipped her tea, glanced out the window at the lake, then back at him. "How old's your son?" "Dylan. He's 6, almost 7. "Does he like cars?" "He likes sitting in my truck and pretending to drive. Does that count?" "Absolutely counts." Ethan found himself almost smiling. He's a good kid. Asks a million questions, never sits still, thinks dinosaurs are cooler than anything else on the planet. Smart kid. "Yeah, he is. Must be hard doing it alone." There it was, the thing everyone danced around or hit head-on with pity. But Victoria didn't say it like she felt sorry for him, just stated it like a fact. "It is," Ethan said, "but you do it anyway." "Yeah," she said quietly, "you do." Something in her voice made him look at her differently. Not just polite interest anymore, something real there, something familiar, like she knew what it meant to carry weight nobody else could see. The conversation shifted after that. Easier. She asked about the shop, and he told her about the '67 Chevy he was rebuilding in his garage. Frame-off restoration, doing most of the work himself when Dylan was asleep. She listened like she actually cared, asked questions that weren't just filler. "What color?" she asked. Midnight blue. Original color was red, but I'm going darker. Why blue? He hadn't expected that question. I don't know, just feels right. She nodded like that made perfect sense. He asked what she did for fun, and she paused again, that same half-second hesitation. I hike, she said. When I have time. There's a trail about an hour north, up in the hills. I go there when I need to think. Alone? Usually. That's safe? She gave him a look, not annoyed, just amused. I can handle myself. Didn't say you couldn't. You implied it. I asked a question. A concerned question. Is that a crime? Not yet. They were both almost smiling now, the kind of back and forth that felt less like sparring and more like rhythm. Natural. An hour passed without Ethan noticing, then another. The coffee shop started filling up with the late afternoon crowd, people coming in after work, loud conversations overlapping. Victoria suggested they walk, and Ethan agreed before thinking about it. They ended up on the path around the lake, paved, easy, dotted with benches and lampposts that would turn on once the sun dropped. The water was calm, reflecting the sky in shades of gray-blue. A couple kayakers paddled near the far shore. Marcus was right, Ethan said after a stretch of quiet. About what? You're not awful, Victoria laughed. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week. Your week must suck. It's had its moments. They walked in silence for a bit, just the sound of their footsteps and distant voices from the playground across the water. Ethan kept his hands in his pockets, aware of the space between them, close, but not too close. Can I ask you something? Victoria said. Sure. Why'd you agree to this? The blind date. He thought about lying, keeping it simple. But something about the way she asked, genuine, not prying, made him tell the truth. Marcus wouldn't shut up about it. Kept saying I needed to get out more, meet people, stop living like a hermit. He glanced at her. Also said if I didn't go, he'd set me up with his wife's sister, and apparently she collects porcelain dolls. Victoria's laugh was loud and sudden, the kind that turned heads. That's a good reason. Yeah. So you're here out of fear? Mostly. I respect that. They reached a bench overlooking the water, and Victoria sat without asking. Ethan followed, keeping a foot of space between them. The sun was lower now, turning everything golden. I'm here because Sarah wouldn't stop either, Victoria said. She thinks I work too much, that I don't make time for anything real. Do you? Work too much? Yeah. She was quiet for a moment, watching the water. Probably. But what's the alternative? Sit around waiting for life to happen? There's a middle ground. Is there? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. He worked 60-hour weeks, came home to a kid who needed him, collapsed into bed, and did it again the next day. Middle ground felt like something other people had. You're good at this, Victoria said suddenly. At what? Talking, listening, being here. I'm not doing anything. Exactly. He looked at her, not sure if she was messing with him or being serious. Her expression gave nothing away. Most people fill every silence, she continued, like they're afraid of it. You don't. Silence doesn't bother me. I noticed. A jogger passed them, earbuds in, oblivious. The kayakers had disappeared around the bend. The playground across the water was emptying out as parents called their kids home for dinner. I should probably get going, Ethan said, though he didn't move. Dylan's with a friend, but I don't like being gone too long. I get that. Victoria stood, brushing off her jeans. This was unexpected. Good unexpected. Yeah, good unexpected. They walked back toward the coffee shop in comfortable quiet, the kind that didn't need filling. When they reached the parking lot, Ethan stopped by his truck, and Victoria stood a few feet away, hands in her pockets. So, she said, do we do this again, or was this a one-time social obligation we can both check off our lists? Ethan surprised himself by answering immediately. We do it again. Yeah? Yeah. She smiled, not polite, not practiced, real. Okay, I'd like that. They exchanged numbers, the awkward dance of pulling out phones and typing carefully, making sure the digits were right. Ethan saved her as Victoria Blind Date because he couldn't think of anything better. "I'll text you," she said. "Okay." She walked toward a car he hadn't noticed before. Something sleek and expensive parked 2 rows over. Ethan climbed into his truck and sat there for a second, hands on the wheel, not turning the key. What the hell just happened? His phone buzzed. Marcus. "Well?" Ethan typed back. "Not terrible. 3 dots. Details. Later." He started the truck and pulled out, glancing once in the rearview mirror. Victoria's car was still there, headlights off. Then it wasn't. Dylan was watching cartoons when Ethan got home, sprawled on the couch in his dinosaur pajamas, even though it was barely past 6. Marcus's wife, Linda, was in the kitchen washing a plate. "Hey," Ethan said. "Sorry I'm late." "You're not late, we're fine." She dried her hands on a towel, giving him that look, the one that meant Marcus had been talking. "So, how'd it go?" "Fine. Just fine." "Linda." Okay, I'm not prying." She grabbed her purse from the counter. Dylan was great, by the way. Ate all his chicken nuggets, no complaints. "Thanks for watching him." "Anytime." She paused at the door. "Marcus is going to call you later. Just warning you." Figured. After she left, Ethan locked the door and joined Dylan on the couch. His son didn't look away from the TV, but he scooted closer, leaning into Ethan's side. "Did you get the thing?" Dylan asked. "What thing?" "The thing you went to get. The errand." Ethan's chest tightened. "Yeah, buddy. I got it." "Good." They sat there through 2 more episodes of whatever colorful chaos was on screen. Ethan's phone buzzed once, but he didn't check it until after Dylan was asleep. Teeth brushed, story read, nightlight on. The text was from Victoria. "Thanks for today. Let me know when you're free again." He stared at it longer than necessary, then typed back, "Next Saturday?" Her response came fast. "Deal." Ethan set his phone on the nightstand and lay back in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the fridge downstairs and the occasional creak of old wood settling. He thought about the way Victoria had laughed when he'd made that crack about porcelain dolls, the way she'd sat on that bench and didn't fill the silence with noise, the way she'd asked about Dylan without that tone people used, the one that meant they pitied him. This was dangerous. He knew it even then, lying in the dark, already thinking about Saturday. Dangerous because it felt easy. Because she didn't feel like a stranger. Because for 3 hours, he'd forgotten to second-guess every word out of his mouth. Dangerous because he wanted to do it again. The week crawled by in the way weeks do when you're waiting for something. Ethan worked on the Chevy late into the nights, pulling the old carburetor, cleaning parts, losing himself in the mechanical rhythm. Dylan helped sometimes, handing him wrenches he didn't need, asking questions Ethan answered on autopilot. "Dad, why are cars so loud?" "Engines. Combustion." "What's combustion?" "Explosions. Little ones." "Cool." Marcus called twice. Ethan ignored the first one, answered the second. "So you're seeing her again," Marcus said, no preamble. "Yeah." "And?" "And what?" "Come on, man, give me something. Linda's been asking." "Tell Linda it's none of her business." "I'll tell her you said that. She'll love it." Ethan almost smiled. "It was good, okay? We talked. We're doing it again. That's all I got." "That's huge, though. You haven't been on a date in—" "Don't. I'm just saying that's—" "Marcus." A pause, then quieter. "I'm glad, man. Really." "Yeah, thanks." After he hung up, Ethan stood in the garage for a long time, shop light buzzing overhead, hands black with grease. The Chevy sat on jack stands, skeletal and half-assembled, a project with no clear end date. He'd been working on it for 2 years. Some nights it felt pointless. Other nights it was the only thing that made sense. Saturday came. Victoria suggested the hiking trail she'd mentioned, up north, in the hills. Ethan agreed, then spent 20 minutes trying to figure out what to wear before settling on jeans and a flannel. Dylan asked where he was going this time, and Ethan told him the truth. "Hiking, with a friend." "What friend?" "A new friend." "Do I know them?" "Not yet." Dylan considered this seriously. "Are they nice?" "Yeah, bud, she's nice." "She?" Ethan regretted his word choice immediately. Dylan's eyes lit up with the kind of curiosity that led to questions Ethan wasn't ready to answer. Is she your girlfriend? No, just a friend. But she's a girl. Yeah, so girlfriend. That's not how it works. Uncle Marcus says a lot of things. Dylan grinned, gap-toothed and smug. Ethan ruffled his hair and left before the interrogation could continue. Linda picked Dylan up 10 minutes later, and Ethan hit the road. The drive north took just over an hour, winding through farmland that gave way to dense forest. Ethan had the windows down, radio off, just the sound of wind and tires on asphalt. He thought about turning around twice, but didn't. The trailhead parking lot was small, gravel and dirt, room for maybe 10 cars. Victoria's was the only one there when he pulled in. She was leaning against the hood, dressed in hiking boots, athletic pants, and a jacket tied around her waist. She waved when she saw him. You made it, she said. Traffic wasn't bad? Good drive? Yeah, quiet. They started walking, the trail cutting upward through pine trees that blocked out most of the sky. The air smelled like earth and sap. Birds called from somewhere unseen. How's Dylan? Victoria asked. Good. Asked a million questions about where I was going. What'd you tell him? The truth. That I was meeting a friend. And he asked if you were my girlfriend. Victoria laughed. What'd you say? That it doesn't work like that. Does it? Ethan glanced at her, but she was looking at the trail ahead, expression unreadable. I don't know, he admitted. Been a while. Yeah, me too. They hiked in silence for a bit, the trail steep enough to make conversation harder. Ethan's legs burned in a good way, muscles waking up after too many hours in the shop. Victoria moved ahead of him at one point, sure-footed, no hesitation. You do this a lot? He called. When I can. Helps me think. Think about what? She didn't answer right away, just kept climbing. When the trail leveled out, she stopped and waited for him to catch up. Everything, she said. Work, life, what I'm doing with both. Heavy thoughts for a hike. Maybe. But it's easier up here, clearer. They kept going, higher into the hills, until the trees thinned and the view opened up. A sprawl of forest below, valley cutting through the middle, mountains beyond that. Victoria walked to the edge, stood with her hands on her hips, breathing hard. This is it, she said. This is the spot. Ethan joined her, careful not to stand too close to the drop-off. The view was insane, the kind of thing people put on postcards and calendars. He'd driven past these hills 100 times and never thought to stop. Worth the climb? Victoria asked. Yeah, definitely. They sat on a flat rock near the edge, passing a water bottle back and forth. The sun was bright, warm enough to make Ethan shed his flannel. Victoria pulled her hair back into a ponytail, and for a second she looked younger, like someone who didn't carry whatever weight Ethan kept sensing beneath the surface. Can I ask you something? She said. Go for it. Dylan's mom. Is she? Ethan's jaw tightened, but he forced it to relax. Fair question. Deserved an answer. She's gone, he said. Not dead, just gone. Left when Dylan was 2. Didn't want the kid, didn't want the life, signed over custody, and that was it. Victoria was quiet, and Ethan braced for the pity. The I'm so sorry that people always gave, like it would fix anything. But she just said, that's hard. Yeah. For both of you. Yeah. She didn't push, didn't ask follow-ups or try to dig deeper. Just let it sit there, acknowledged and done. What about you? Ethan asked. Family? Parents, one brother. We're, close, I guess. Complicated, but close. Complicated how? She hesitated. They have expectations. I don't always meet them. That their problem or yours? Both. Ethan nodded. Yeah, I get that. They sat there until the sun shifted, shadows creeping across the valley. On the way back down, the conversation stayed light. Movies they'd seen recently, food they hated, stupid things that didn't matter but filled the space easily. Victoria had strong opinions about pineapple on pizza. Against. Ethan admitted he'd never seen The Godfather. She was horrified. By the time they reached the parking lot, Ethan's legs were jelly and his shirt was stuck to his back with sweat. Victoria looked barely winded. You do this every week? He asked. Most weeks. Show off. She grinned. Maybe. They stood by their cars, neither moving to leave. The sun was lower now, painting everything orange and gold. Ethan felt the same pull he'd felt last week, the not wanting it to end feeling that made him feel like a teenager. So, Victoria said, next time? Yeah, definitely. Your turn to pick. Okay, he thought for a second. There's a car show next Saturday. Couple towns over. Old classics, hot rods. Kind of my thing. I'm in. Yeah? Yeah. She climbed into her car and Ethan watched her drive off before getting into his truck. His phone buzzed as he pulled onto the highway. Marcus. How'd it go? Ethan typed back one-handed. Good. Details. Later. He drove home with the windows down and the radio still off, mind running through the day on repeat, the way she'd looked standing at the edge of that cliff, the way she'd asked about Dylan without judgment, the way none of it felt forced or fake, dangerous. But he was already in too deep to care. The car show was smaller than Ethan remembered from years ago, but it still drew a decent crowd. Rows of polished chrome and candy paint finishes gleamed under the Saturday sun. Owners standing guard with microfiber cloths, ready to wipe away fingerprints before they fully formed. Music from the 60s drifted from someone's portable speaker. The smell of hot asphalt mixed with engine oil and food truck grease. Victoria showed up wearing sunglasses and a dress. Casual, but still a dress. Ethan felt underdressed in his usual jeans and t-shirt combo, but she didn't seem to notice or care. This is your scene? She asked, surveying the lot. Used to be. Haven't been to one in a while. Why not? He shrugged. Life got busy. They walked the rows slowly, Ethan pointing out details she wouldn't have noticed otherwise. Original paint versus restoration, engine swaps, custom fabrication. Victoria listened, asked questions that showed she was actually paying attention. That one, she said, stopping in front of a pristine '69 Camaro, forest green with white racing stripes. Why's everyone crowding around it? Because it's perfect. Numbers matching, all the original parts, probably worth more than my house. Is that what you want? Perfect? Ethan looked at the Camaro, then at his mental image of the Chevy sitting in his garage, half-assembled, paint-stripped, miles from done. No, I like the work, the fixing, perfect's boring. Victoria smiled like he'd said something right, though he wasn't sure what. They grabbed food from a taco truck and sat on the tailgate of Ethan's pickup, watching people filter past. A guy with a handlebar mustache walked by leading a bulldog wearing a leather jacket. A kid maybe Dylan's age pressed his face against the window of a hot rod, leaving smudges his dad quickly wiped away. Dylan would lose his mind here, Ethan said. Bring him next time. The casualness of it, next time, settled into Ethan's chest in a way that felt both good and terrifying. Next time implied this wasn't a fluke, that whatever they were doing had legs. He'd ask you 1,000 questions, Ethan warned. Good. I like questions. Even the annoying ones, especially those. A '57 Bel Air rumbled past, engine growling low. Victoria watched it go, something thoughtful crossing her face. What? Ethan asked. Nothing, just, this is nice, different from what I usually do on weekends. What do you usually do? She hesitated again, that same pause he'd noticed before. Work, mostly. Catch up on things I didn't finish during the week. It's not exciting. Sounds exhausting. It is. They finished eating and walked another lap around the show. Near the exit, an old guy was selling parts from the bed of a truck. Carburetors, headlights, trim pieces organized in milk crates. Ethan stopped to dig through a box of vintage emblems. Looking for anything specific? The guy asked. Bowtie emblem, '67 Chevy. Might have one in here somewhere. He pulled out another crate, started sorting. Doing a restoration? Trying to. Best of luck. Those old small blocks will run forever if you treat them right. Ethan found the emblem buried under some taillight lenses. Chrome, a little pitted but salvageable. He paid $5 for it and pocketed the piece. For the Chevy? Victoria asked as they walked back to the truck. Yeah, small piece, but it matters. She nodded like she understood, though Ethan wasn't sure how she could. Most people didn't get the point of restoring something that old. Why not just buy something new, something that worked? But Victoria didn't ask that. She just accepted it. The drive back felt shorter than it should have. They talked about nothing important. Bad movies, worse music, the weird couple at the show who'd shown up in matching leather pants. Easy conversation that didn't require effort. When Ethan pulled into the coffee shop parking lot where Victoria had left her car, he didn't want her to go. Simple as that. Stupid, maybe, but true. "Thanks for today," she said, unbuckling her seatbelt but not moving to get out. "Yeah, thanks for coming. I know cars aren't everyone's thing. I had fun." "Yeah?" "Yeah." She looked at him and something shifted in the air between them. Nothing dramatic, just a subtle change in pressure. "We should do this again. We keep saying that. Because it keeps being true." She got out before he could think of what to say next, gave him a small wave through the windshield, and drove off. Ethan sat there longer than necessary, engine idling, that emblem solid in his pocket. When he got home, Dylan was in the living room building something elaborate with Legos. A spaceship, maybe, or a fortress. Hard to tell. "Hey, bud." "Dad, look." See, Dylan held up the structure, which immediately fell apart in his hands. He didn't seem bothered. "I'm making a base." "Cool, for what?" "Dinosaurs, obviously." "Obviously." Ethan sat on the floor next to him, helping reassemble pieces. His phone buzzed. "Victoria, that was fun. Let's not wait a whole week next time." He typed back, "Wednesday? Dinner?" Her response came quick. "Perfect. Pick the place." Dylan noticed him smiling at his phone. "Who's that?" "Nobody." "Dad?" "A friend." "The friend? The girl one?" Ethan sighed. "Yeah, that one." "Are you going to marry her?" "What? No. It's not like that." "Uncle Marcus says, I'm going to have a talk with Uncle Marcus." Dylan grinned and went back to his Legos. Ethan stayed on the floor, phone in hand, that message still on the screen. Wednesday felt both too far away and too soon. The week passed different this time. Lighter, somehow. Ethan caught himself thinking about stupid things, whether he should shave before Wednesday, if the Italian place downtown was too fancy, what they'd even talk about now that they'd burned through the easy surface stuff. He worked on the Chevy after Dylan went to bed, installing the emblem he'd bought, stepping back to see how it looked. Small detail. But it mattered. Marcus called Tuesday night. "So, Linda saw Victoria's car at the coffee shop again last Saturday. Are you stalking me?" Linda was getting coffee. It's a public place. And yes, she's nosy, so am I. "What's going on?" "We're hanging out. That's it." "That's it?" "That's it." "But you like her?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Admitting it out loud felt like crossing a line he wasn't sure he was ready to cross. "Yeah, I like her." "Good. She seems solid." "You've never met her?" Linda did, briefly, said she seemed normal, nice. High praise from Linda. "She doesn't throw that word around lightly." Marcus paused. "You going to introduce her to Dylan?" "I don't know, maybe. It's early." "I know, man. Just saying, whenever you're ready, it's okay to let people in." After they hung up, Ethan stood in the garage staring at the Chevy. The frame was solid now, most of the rust cut out and patched. Engine was still in pieces on the workbench, waiting for gaskets and patience. He'd been working on this car for 2 years, telling himself he'd finish it eventually, but eventually kept moving further out. Maybe some things weren't meant to be finished alone. Wednesday arrived. Ethan took a half day at the shop, left his assistant to handle the 2 oil changes on the schedule. He went home, showered, actually ironed a shirt, which felt ridiculous but also necessary. Dylan was at school, wouldn't be home until Linda picked him up later. He texted Victoria the address of the Italian place. She replied, "See you at 7." Ethan got there 15 minutes early again, cursed himself for it, then went in anyway. The hostess sat him at a booth near the back. Red checkered tablecloths, candles in wine bottles, the smell of garlic and bread thick in the air. Not fancy, but nice. Comfortable. Victoria walked in at 7 exactly, wearing dark jeans and a blouse, hair down this time. She spotted him and smiled, weaving through tables. "Hey! Hey!" He stood awkwardly, not sure if he should hug her or shake hands or just sit back down. She made the choice for him, sliding into the booth across from him. "This place looks great," she said, glancing around. "How'd you find it?" Used to come here with... Before. He stopped himself. A while ago. Food's good. If she caught the stumble, she didn't show it. A waiter appeared, took their drink orders. Wine for her, beer for him. Left menus they both ignored for a minute. Long day? Ethan asked. You could say that. Meetings back to back. The kind where nothing gets decided but everyone talks for 2 hours anyway. Sounds like hell. It's close. She leaned back, rolling her shoulders like she was trying to shake off the day. But I'm here now, so it's better. Something about the way she said it, casual but honest, made Ethan's chest tighten in that good-bad way that meant he was in trouble. They ordered food when the waiter came back. Ethan got spaghetti carbonara. Victoria chose chicken piccata. The conversation flowed easier than it had any right to, skipping past small talk into real territory without either of them forcing it. Dylan asked if I was going to marry you, Ethan said, then immediately regretted it. Victoria nearly choked on her wine. What? Yeah, kid's got no filter. I told him it doesn't work like that. What'd he say? Asked why not. She laughed and Ethan felt himself relax. Smart kid. Too smart sometimes. How's he handling all this? You dating again? I don't think he fully gets it. He just knows I've been going out more. Seems fine with it. That's good. Yeah. Ethan paused. Would you want to meet him? I mean, not right now, but eventually? Victoria's expression softened. I'd like that. Whenever you think it's right. The food arrived and they ate slowly, talking between bites. Victoria asked about the shop, and Ethan told her about the nightmare transmission job he'd been dealing with all week, a Dodge that kept throwing codes no matter what he replaced. She told him about a deal that was falling apart at work, something about contracts and investors pulling out last minute. She kept it vague, and Ethan didn't push. You ever think about doing something else? He asked. Than what I do now? Yeah. She considered it, twirling pasta on her fork. Sometimes. But I'm good at it, and it's complicated. There are people depending on me. There's always people depending on you. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever. Says the guy rebuilding a car he's been working on for 2 years. That's different. Is it? Ethan didn't have an answer for that. After dinner, they walked. No plan. Just out the door and down the street, past closed storefronts and the occasional bar with light spilling onto the sidewalk. The night was cool, clear, the kind of spring evening that felt like a promise of summer. Can I tell you something? Victoria said. Sure. I haven't done this in a long time. The dating thing, being open to someone. Yeah, me neither. It's scary. Yeah. She stopped walking, turned to face him. They were under a streetlight, moths circling above. Her eyes were dark, serious. I like you, Ethan. I know that's probably too honest too soon, but I'm tired of playing games. Life's too short. His heart was doing something stupid in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. I like you too. Good. They stood there for a moment, the space between them charged with something neither of them named. Then Victoria stepped closer, and Ethan closed the gap, and they kissed under that streetlight like they were 20 instead of 30-something and damaged and carrying more baggage than anyone should. When they pulled apart, Victoria was smiling. That took longer than I expected. You were counting? Maybe. Ethan laughed, and it felt good, easy and light and real. They walked back to the restaurant parking lot, hands brushing but not quite holding. At her car, Victoria turned to him again. So what now? She asked. I don't know. More of this? Sounds good to me. She kissed him again, quick this time, then got in her car. Ethan watched her drive off, standing in the parking lot like an idiot, grinning at nothing. His phone buzzed on the drive home. Victoria. Thanks for tonight. You're good at this. At what? Being real. He saved that message, didn't even feel stupid about it. The next few weeks blurred together in the best way. They fell into a rhythm, dinners on weeknights when they could swing it, longer outings on weekends. Ethan brought Victoria to the shop one Saturday afternoon, showed her around, introduced her to his assistant Jake, who gave him a look that said 1,000 words without speaking. Victoria fit there easier than Ethan expected. She didn't flinch at the grease or the noise, asked questions about the lifts and the tools, seemed genuinely interested. When Jake went on lunch break, she rolled up her sleeves and helped Ethan sort bolts, organizing them by size in old coffee cans. You don't have to do this, Ethan said. I know. I want to. Why? Because this is your world. I want to see it. Dylan met her on a Sunday. Ethan had put it off as long as he could, nervous in a way he hadn't been since the first blind date. But Victoria had asked again, gentle but persistent, and Ethan finally agreed. They met at a park, neutral ground, low pressure. Dylan brought a soccer ball and immediately kicked it at Victoria without warning. She trapped it with her foot, passed it back, and Ethan's anxiety dropped about 50%. You play soccer? Dylan asked. A little, when I was your age. Were you good? I was okay. Dad's terrible at soccer. Thanks, bud. Victoria laughed. They played for a while, just kicking the ball around, Dylan's energy boundless. Eventually he got distracted by a dog and ran off to pet it, leaving Ethan and Victoria standing on the grass. He likes you, Ethan said. You think? Yeah, he doesn't warm up to people that fast. Maybe he gets it from you. What? Knowing when someone's worth the effort. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just took her hand. Dylan came running back, saw them, and grinned. Are you Dad's girlfriend now? Victoria looked at Ethan, raising an eyebrow. He nodded slightly, and she turned back to Dylan. Yeah, I guess I am. Cool, can we get ice cream? They got ice cream. Dylan ordered chocolate with gummy bears, made a mess, asked Victoria 20 questions about everything from her favorite dinosaur to whether she'd ever seen a real spaceship. She answered all of them seriously, like they mattered. On the drive home, Dylan fell asleep in the back seat, face smudged with chocolate. Victoria rode with them, quiet, watching the road. You're good with him, Ethan said. He makes it easy. Most people don't think so. He's a lot. He's a kid. Kids are supposed to be a lot. When they pulled up to Ethan's house, he carried Dylan inside while Victoria waited on the porch. After he got his son into bed, he came back out and found her sitting on the steps. You want to come in? He asked. Not tonight. I should get going. Okay. She stood, and he walked her to her car. This time when they kissed, it felt different, less tentative, more certain, like they'd crossed some invisible line and neither of them wanted to go back. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. Okay. He watched her drive away, then went back inside. The house felt quieter than usual, but not in a bad way. Just different. Marcus called the next day. So Linda heard from her friend who saw you at the park with a kid and a woman, and does Linda have spies everywhere? Pretty much, but seriously, you introduced them? Yeah. And? And it went fine. Good, actually. Dylan liked her. That's big, man. I know. You happy? Ethan thought about it. Really thought about it. Yeah, I think I am. Good, you deserve it. After he hung up, Ethan went to the garage. The Chevy looked different now, less like a project with no end and more like something achievable. He'd been making real progress lately, motivated by something he couldn't quite name. Or maybe he could name it, just didn't want to admit it out loud yet. Victoria texted that night. Dylan's great. You're doing a good job with him. Thanks. He asked when you're coming back. What'd you say? Soon. That an invitation? Yeah. She came over that Friday. They made dinner together, or tried to. Victoria turned out to be terrible at cooking, burning the garlic bread and somehow undercooking pasta, which Ethan didn't think was possible. Dylan thought it was hilarious. Dad, she's worse than you. I'm not that bad. You made eggs that bounced once. That was one time. Victoria laughed so hard she had to sit down. They ordered pizza instead, ate it on the couch while Dylan showed her his Lego collection, explaining the backstory of every single creation with the seriousness of a museum curator. After Dylan went to bed, Ethan and Victoria sat in the garage. She perched on a stool while he worked on the engine, hands moving on autopilot. You're different here, she said. What do you mean? More relaxed, like this is where you're supposed to be. I spend a lot of time out here. I can tell. She stood, walked around the car, running her hand along the primer gray fender. What's it going to look like when it's done? Midnight blue, chrome bumpers, white interior, classic. When do you think you'll finish? I don't know. Another year, maybe. If I'm lucky. You've been saying that for 2 years. He looked up from the engine. How'd you know that? You told me. The first day we met. The fact that she remembered hit him harder than it should have. Small detail, but it mattered. I want to tell you something, Victoria said, her voice quieter now. Okay. I haven't been completely honest with you. Ethan's stomach dropped. Here it comes, he thought, the other shoe, the thing that ruins it. About what? He asked, setting down the wrench. Victoria took a breath. My job. It's not just management. I run a company, a big one. And my family, they're not just well off, they're wealthy, really wealthy. Ethan stared at her, processing. How wealthy? Enough that it changes things. People treat you differently when they know, they want something, or they assume you're a certain way. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to see me, just me. What kind of company? Tech. Software solutions for enterprises. We have offices in 6 states, contracts with major corporations. It's a lot. He tried to reconcile the woman standing in his garage with what she was telling him. The hiking, the car shows, the burnt garlic bread, none of it felt like someone running an empire. Why tell me now, he asked. Because this is getting real, and I don't want to lie to you, not about this. Ethan sat on the edge of the workbench, trying to sort through how he felt. Betrayed? No, not quite. Confused? Yeah. But also, it made sense. The way she talked about work, the vagueness, the expensive car she drove. He'd just never connected the dots. Say something, Victoria said. I don't know what to say. Are you mad? I don't think so. I need a minute. She nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. They stood in silence, the garage suddenly feeling smaller. Does it change anything? She asked finally. I don't know yet. Okay, that's fair. He looked at her, really looked at her. Same woman who'd laughed at his terrible jokes, who'd kicked a soccer ball with his son, who'd sat in this garage and asked questions because she wanted to understand his world. The money didn't change that, but it changed something. I'm not good at this, Ethan said. The whole relationship thing. I'm out of practice and I've got a kid to think about, and now you're telling me you're, what, a billionaire? Something like that. That's insane, I know. But you still burned garlic bread. She laughed, surprised. Yeah, I still did that. Ethan stood, closed the distance between them. I need you to be honest with me from now on. About everything. Because if this is going to work, I need to know who you really are. I will. I promise. Okay. Okay? Yeah, okay. She kissed him, and it felt like forgiveness and acceptance and 100 other things they didn't have words for. They talked for another hour, sitting on the floor of the garage, backs against the Chevy. Victoria told him more about the company her father had built, the pressure to take over, the weight of expectation she'd been carrying since college. Ethan listened, asked questions, tried to understand a world so far from his own it might as well be another planet. You ever think about walking away? He asked. All the time, but it's not that simple. Why not? People depend on me. Employees, investors, my family. I can't just quit because I'm tired. Sounds lonely. It is. Or it was. She looked at him. Less so now. When she left that night, Ethan stood in the driveway watching her taillights disappear. His phone buzzed. Marcus, you up? Yeah. Everything good? I think so. Call you tomorrow. He went back to the garage, but he didn't work on the car. Just sat there thinking about everything that had changed in the past 2 months. How a blind date he'd almost skipped had turned into this. How someone who ran a tech empire had chosen to spend her Friday night in his garage. The world felt bigger suddenly, and smaller at the same time. The weeks that followed felt like walking a tightrope Ethan hadn't known existed. Victoria's revelation changed things in ways he couldn't quite articulate. Not bad ways, necessarily, just different. He'd catch himself wondering if she was texting from a boardroom or a private jet, then feel stupid for wondering at all. She was still the same person who'd laughed at his burnt coffee jokes and played soccer with Dylan. The money was just background noise. Except it wasn't. It showed up in small ways, the way she'd casually mention flying to Boston for a meeting like it was driving across town. How she'd check her phone during dinner and apologize, saying something about Tokyo office hours. The expensive watch she wore that Ethan had initially thought was a knockoff until he'd Googled it one night and nearly choked. But she still showed up. That's what mattered. Friday nights in his garage, Sunday mornings at the park with Dylan, Tuesday dinners at hole-in-the-wall restaurants she'd never been to but seemed genuinely excited to try. She didn't act different, didn't expect anything to change, so Ethan tried not to let it change anything either. Dylan asked about her constantly now. When was Victoria coming over? Could she come to his school thing next week? Did she like the drawing he'd made her? Ethan fielded the questions with patience he didn't know he had, trying to navigate the impossible balance of not getting the kids' hopes up while also not lying about how serious things were getting. Because they were getting serious. Ethan felt it in the way Victoria had started keeping a toothbrush at his place, the way she knew where he kept the coffee filters, the way Dylan had stopped asking if she was coming over and started asking what time she'd be there. It felt good. Too good, maybe. And that scared him more than he wanted to admit. 3 months in, Victoria invited them to her place for the first time. Ethan had been expecting something absurd. Penthouse with a doorman, maybe, or one of those modern glass boxes that looked like art installations. What he got was a house on the edge of town, tucked into 5 acres of woods. Big, yeah, but not obscene. Stone and timber, wide windows, a porch that wrapped around 3 sides. "This is nice," he said, pulling up the gravel drive. Victoria was waiting on the porch steps, wearing jeans and a sweater, hair pulled back. "It's too much house for one person, but I like the land." Dylan was out of the truck before Ethan had it in park, running toward her. She caught him in a hug and something in Ethan's chest tightened watching them. Inside was comfortable, lived in, despite the high ceilings and the kind of furniture that probably cost more than Ethan's truck. Books everywhere, plants on the windowsills, a blanket thrown over the back of the couch like someone actually used it. "You have a huge TV," Dylan announced, staring at the screen mounted above the fireplace. "Do you want to watch something?" Victoria asked. "Can we watch the dinosaur one?" "We can watch whatever you want." While Dylan scrolled through options, Ethan followed Victoria into the kitchen. It was massive. Marble counters, stainless appliances, an island big enough to seat 6. She pulled out ingredients for dinner, moving around the space with the ease of someone who actually cooked here. "I thought you couldn't cook," Ethan said. "I can't cook complicated things, but I can make spaghetti without setting anything on fire." "Low bar." "I'm aware." They worked side by side, Victoria handling the sauce while Ethan boiled water and kept Dylan from destroying the living room. It felt domestic in a way that should have been weird, but wasn't. Just easy. Dinner was good. Dylan talked nonstop about school and Legos and a kid named Max who'd eaten a crayon on a dare. Victoria listened like it was the most important story she'd ever heard, asking follow-up questions that made Dylan light up. After dinner, Dylan crashed hard on the couch, dinosaur documentary still playing. Victoria covered him with the throw blanket, and Ethan carried him to the guest room she'd set up without being asked. Bed already made, nightlight plugged in. "You didn't have to do all this," Ethan said, closing the door quietly. "I wanted to. He's important to you, so he's important to me." They ended up on the back porch, sitting in Adirondack chairs, looking out at the dark trees. The night was cool, crickets loud, no light pollution this far from town, stars everywhere. "I could get used to this," Ethan said. "Yeah?" "Yeah." Victoria was quiet for a moment, then, "My dad wants to meet you." Ethan's stomach dropped. "What?" "He's been asking about you. I told him we've been seeing each other and he wants to meet you. Officially." "Why?" "Because that's what he does. He wants to know who's in my life." "That sounds intense." "It can be. But he means well, mostly." Ethan stared out at the trees, processing. Meeting parents was a big step, the kind of step that meant this wasn't just casual anymore. Not that it ever really had been, but still. This made it real in a way that felt irreversible. "When?" he asked. "Whenever you're ready. No pressure." "Is there a right answer to that?" "Not really." He thought about it. Thought about Dylan asleep in the other room, about the toothbrush in his bathroom, about the way Victoria fit into his life like she'd always been there. "Okay, yeah, let's do it." "Yeah?" "Yeah. But if he hates me, I'm blaming you." She laughed. "Deal." They sat in silence after that, comfortable and easy. Ethan's phone buzzed. Marcus. How's the fancy house? He typed back, How do you even know about that? Linda saw Victoria's car turn down that road. We looked it up. Very nice. You're both insane. Probably. But we care. Ethan put his phone away and looked at Victoria. She was staring up at the stars, expression peaceful in a way he rarely saw when she talked about work. You ever think about slowing down? He asked. With work? Yeah. All the time. But it's not that simple. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. She sighed. My dad built this company from nothing, put everything into it. When he handed it to me, it felt like this huge responsibility. Like if I screwed it up, I'd be letting him down, letting everyone down. That's a lot of weight. Yeah. But what do you want? She turned to look at him. What do you mean? Forget your dad, forget the employees, forget all of it. What do you actually want? Victoria was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was smaller than he'd ever heard it. I don't know anymore. I used to know. But somewhere along the way, I just lost it. Ethan reached over, took her hand. Maybe you need to find it again. Maybe. They stayed out there until the cold drove them inside. Victoria made tea, and they sat at the kitchen island talking about nothing important. Movies they wanted to see, places Dylan wanted to visit, whether the Chevy would actually be done by next year. The conversation meandered, easy and comfortable, until Ethan's eyes started getting heavy. I should probably get him home, he said, nodding toward the guest room. You could stay, both of you. There's plenty of space. You sure? Yeah, I'm sure. They stayed. Ethan slept in the guest room with Dylan, who didn't wake up during the transfer from couch to bed. In the morning, Victoria made pancakes. Burned the first batch, but the second round was edible, and Dylan declared it the best breakfast ever. On the drive home, Dylan was quiet, staring out the window. You okay, bud? Ethan asked. Yeah. You sure? Do you love Victoria? The question hit Ethan like a sucker punch. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, trying to find the right words. That's a big question. But do you? Ethan thought about it, really thought about it. The answer scared him, but lying to his kids scared him more. Yeah, I think I do. Good. Me too. The simplicity of it, the total lack of complication in Dylan's world, made Ethan's throat tight. Kids made everything so clear, so easy. If only adult relationships worked the same way. Meeting Victoria's father was scheduled for the following Sunday. A late lunch at the family ranch, 2 hours outside the city. Victoria seemed nervous about it in a way Ethan had never seen her nervous about anything. She changed clothes 3 times before they left, kept checking her phone, barely spoke during the drive. He's gonna like you, Ethan said, trying to sound confident. You don't know that. I'm likable. You are. But he's particular. About what? Everything. The ranch appeared at the end of a long dirt road, sprawling property with white fences, a main house that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and several outbuildings scattered across the land. Horses grazed in one pasture, cattle in another. It was the kind of place that screamed old money and tradition. Victoria's mother met them at the door, elegant, warm, immediately pulling Victoria into a hug before turning to Ethan. You must be Ethan. I'm Caroline. It's so nice to finally meet you. Nice to meet you too. Victoria talks about you constantly. And Dylan, of course. Where is he today? With a friend, Ethan said. Figured the first meeting should be just adults. Smart man. Victoria's father appeared from somewhere inside, tall, gray-haired, wearing jeans and a button-up that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly mortgage. He had the kind of presence that made you stand up straighter without thinking about it. Dad, this is Ethan. Ethan, my father, Richard. Richard extended a hand. His grip was firm, assessing. Ethan, good to meet you. You too, sir. None of that sir business. Richard's fine. Lunch was set up on the back patio, a spread of sandwiches, salads, fresh bread. They sat under an umbrella, sun warm but not oppressive. Caroline asked about the shop, and Ethan found himself talking about the business, the Chevy restoration, the satisfaction of fixing things. Richard listened more than he spoke, asking pointed questions that felt like tests Ethan didn't know he was taking. Victoria says you're a single father, Richard said eventually. Yes, sir. Richard, yeah, my son's 6. That's hard work. It is, but he's worth it. How long have you been on your own? 4 years. Richard nodded, processing. And your business? You own it outright? Yeah. Small operation, just me and an assistant, but it's mine. That's respectable. Building something yourself. The conversation shifted to safer topics after that, the ranch, the horses, how long the property had been in the family. Victoria relaxed incrementally, some of the tension leaving her shoulders. Caroline was easy to talk to, genuinely warm, asking about Dylan with the kind of interest that felt real. After lunch, Richard stood. Ethan, walk with me? It wasn't really a question. Victoria shot him an apologetic look as he followed her father across the lawn toward the barn. Inside, it smelled like hay and leather, horses shifting in their stalls. You know what my daughter does for a living, Richard said, not looking at Ethan. Yeah, she told me. And it doesn't bother you? The money? No, I mean, it's a lot to wrap my head around, but it doesn't change who she is. Doesn't it? Ethan considered that. Maybe it changes how other people see her, but not how I see her. Richard finally looked at him. She's been hurt before. Someone who wanted the lifestyle more than they wanted her. I don't want to see that happen again. I'm not that guy. How do I know that? I guess you don't. But I'm here anyway. I showed up, I'm still showing up, and I plan to keep showing up. That's all I can offer. Richard studied him for a long moment, then nodded. She seems happy. Happier than I've seen her in years. That counts for something. She makes me happy too, and my son. That counts for more. They walked back to the patio in silence. Victoria stood when she saw them, searching Ethan's face for clues. Everything okay? She asked quietly. Yeah, all good. The rest of the afternoon passed easier. Caroline insisted on showing Ethan the gardens, rattling off plant names he immediately forgot. Victoria walked with them, hand-finding Ethan's when her mother wasn't looking. On the drive back, Victoria let out a breath she'd apparently been holding for hours. That wasn't so bad, Ethan said. You think? Your dad didn't threaten me or anything. I'm calling it a win. He liked you. How do you know? Because he didn't grill you for an hour. That's his version of approval. Ethan's phone rang as they hit the highway. Marcus's name on the screen. He answered, on speaker. Hey. Ethan. Marcus's voice was tight, wrong. Where are you? Driving back from Victoria's parents' place. Why? You need to get to the hospital. It's Dylan. Everything else disappeared. The road, Victoria, the conversation they'd been having, all of it gone. Just those 3 words. It's Dylan. What happened? He fell. At the park. Hit his head pretty hard. Linda called an ambulance. They're at Memorial. I'm on my way. He hung up. Victoria was already pulling over. I'll drive, she said. You're shaking. She was right. His hands were trembling, adrenaline flooding his system. He switched seats, barely remembering the movement. Victoria pulled back onto the highway and accelerated. He's going to be okay, she said. You don't know that. No, but he's tough. Like his dad. The drive took 40 minutes that felt like 4 hours. Ethan's leg bounced the whole time, mind racing through worst-case scenarios he couldn't stop. Head injuries, concussions, worse. Dylan's face kept flashing in his mind, smiling, laughing, asking when Victoria was coming over. Victoria drove faster than was probably legal, didn't say anything, just let him spiral in silence. Memorial's ER parking lot was chaos. Victoria found a spot and they ran inside. Marcus met them in the waiting room, his face pale. Where is he? Ethan demanded. Room 6. They're running tests, CT scan to check for bleeding. How bad? They won't tell me much because I'm not family. Ethan pushed through the double doors before anyone could stop him. A nurse tried to intercept, but he kept moving until he found room 6. Dylan was on a bed, small and pale, a bandage on his forehead. Linda sat beside him, holding his hand. She stood when she saw Ethan. I'm so sorry. We were just at the park, and he was climbing on the jungle gym, and he slipped. It's okay. Ethan was already at Dylan's side, hand on his son's cheek. Hey, bud. You okay? Dylan's eyes were open but unfocused. Dad? Yeah, I'm here. My head hurts. I know, the doctors are going to make it better. A doctor came in, young, professional, carrying a tablet. Mr. Cole? Yeah, how is he? The CT scan shows a mild concussion. No bleeding, no fractures. He's going to be okay, but we want to keep him overnight for observation. The relief hit Ethan so hard his knees almost gave out. Okay. Yeah. Whatever you need. The doctor went through protocols, monitoring, wake-up checks every few hours, things to watch for. Ethan heard maybe half of it, too focused on Dylan's face to process details. After the doctor left, Linda excused herself to give them space. Victoria appeared in the doorway but didn't come in, just stood there waiting. Is Victoria here? Dylan asked, voice small. Yeah, buddy, she's right there. Can she come in? Victoria entered at Ethan's nod, moving carefully to the other side of the bed. She took Dylan's hand. Hey you, she said softly. Gave us quite a scare. I fell. I heard. That was silly of you. I know. But you're okay now. That's what matters. Dylan's eyes were getting heavy. The doctor had mentioned they'd given him something for the pain. Will you stay? Of course, we're both staying. Good. He drifted off, hand still in Victoria's. Ethan sat in the chair, head in his hands, letting the adrenaline drain out. Victoria didn't move, didn't let go of Dylan's hand. You okay? She asked quietly. I don't know, that was... He couldn't finish. Scary. Yeah. But he's okay. You heard the doctor. I know, When Marcus called, I thought, I know. They sat in silence, listening to Dylan breathe, to the machines beeping steadily. After a while, Marcus appeared with coffee. Linda went home to grab some things for Dylan, he said, handing Ethan a cup. Pajamas, his stuffed dinosaur. Thanks. You need anything? No, we're good. Marcus hesitated. She stayed, he said, nodding toward Victoria. Yeah. That's good, man. That's real good. After Marcus left, the hours blurred. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, asking questions. Dylan woke up twice, disoriented both times, settling when he saw Ethan and Victoria still there. Around midnight, a nurse brought a cot for Ethan. Victoria curled up in the chair, refusing to leave. You don't have to stay, Ethan said. I want to. Victoria, I'm staying, Ethan. Don't argue. So he didn't. Somewhere around 3 in the morning, his phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize at first, then realized was Victoria's father. Heard about Dylan. Hope he's okay. Let us know if you need anything. Ethan showed the message to Victoria. She smiled, tired but genuine. Told you he liked you. Weird way of showing it. That's just how he is. Morning came slow and gray. Dylan woke up more alert, asking for breakfast. The doctor cleared him to go home with a long list of concussion protocols. Ethan signed discharge papers while Victoria helped Dylan get dressed. In the truck, Dylan sat between them, unusually quiet. Victoria had insisted on driving them home, and Ethan was too exhausted to argue. You scared me, Ethan said finally. Sorry, Dad. Don't be sorry, just be more careful. Okay. I mean it, Dylan. You're all I've got. Dylan looked up at him, then at Victoria. Not all. Something in Ethan's chest cracked open. He pulled his son closer, kissing the top of his head. Victoria pulled into Ethan's driveway. Marcus and Linda's car was already there. Linda had apparently stocked the fridge and made soup. Marcus had mowed the lawn. Acts of service that meant more than words. After everyone left, after Dylan was settled on the couch with his dinosaur and a movie, Ethan found Victoria in the kitchen making tea. Thank you, he said. For what? Staying, being there, all of it. She turned to face him. Where else would I be? I don't know, but you were there anyway. Ethan, I'm not going anywhere. I know this is complicated and messy, and you've got Dylan to think about, but I'm here, okay? I'm here. He kissed her then, hard and desperate, and full of things he didn't have words for yet. Later that night, after Victoria had gone home and Dylan was asleep in his room, Ethan sat in the garage staring at the Chevy. He didn't work on it, just sat there, phone in hand, That message from Victoria's father still on the screen. The call came at 11. Victoria, voice shaking. Ethan, what's wrong? It's my dad. There was an accident, heart attack. He's in the hospital. Where? The ranch. They airlifted him to county. I'm on my way there now. I'm coming. No, you don't have to. I'm coming, Victoria. Just like you stayed for Dylan. I'm coming. A pause. Then quiet. Okay. He called Marcus, who showed up 15 minutes later to stay with Dylan. Ethan drove through the dark too fast, following the same highway he'd taken that afternoon. Everything had been fine 12 hours ago. Normal. Now it was all falling apart. County Hospital was bigger, colder than Memorial. Ethan found Victoria in the ICU waiting room, still in the same clothes from earlier, face pale, eyes red. Hey, he said, sitting beside her. She didn't say anything, just leaned into him, and he wrapped his arms around her while she shook. They sat in that waiting room for 3 hours before a doctor finally emerged. Victoria stood so fast she nearly knocked over the chair. Caroline was already there, having arrived an hour earlier, looking smaller somehow in the harsh fluorescent light. Mrs. Hale, the doctor said, and Ethan hated that he couldn't read the man's face. Doctors were trained for that. Neutral expressions that gave nothing away until they decided to give everything away. How is he? Caroline's voice was steady, but her hands weren't. He's stable. We performed an emergency catheterization. There was significant blockage in 2 arteries. We were able to clear them, place stents. He's in recovery now. Victoria exhaled like she'd been holding her breath since the phone call. Can we see him? Soon. He's still under sedation, but once he's moved to ICU, you can go in, 2 at a time. After the doctor left, Caroline sat down hard, like her legs had just remembered they were tired. Victoria sat beside her, and Ethan hung back, feeling like an intruder on a moment that belonged to family. You should go home, Victoria said without looking at him. Check on Dylan. I'm not leaving. Ethan, I'm not leaving, he repeated, quieter this time. Not until you tell me to. She turned then, eyes red and exhausted, and something in her expression broke. Okay. Caroline looked between them, something unreadable crossing her face. Then she reached out and squeezed Ethan's hand. Thank you for coming. Of course. The waiting continued. Ethan made coffee runs, brought back sandwiches from the cafeteria that nobody ate. Victoria's brother showed up around 2 in the morning, tall, sharp-dressed even at this hour, looking like a younger version of their father. He nodded at Ethan but didn't ask questions, just pulled Victoria into a hug that lasted longer than seemed necessary. James, this is Ethan, Victoria said when they finally separated. James extended a hand. The mechanic. Yeah. Good to meet you. Wish it was under better circumstances. Same. They were allowed in to see Richard around 4. Victoria went first with Caroline, leaving Ethan and James in the waiting room. The silence was uncomfortable, the kind that stretched too long. So you're dating my sister, James said finally. Yeah. Serious? Yeah. James nodded, processing. She seems different lately. Lighter. That's good, right? It is. Just making sure you know what you're getting into. The money thing? Yeah, I know. Not just the money, the whole package. The company, the expectations, the fact that our father built an empire and she's expected to keep it running. James leaned back, running a hand through his hair. It's a lot of pressure. She handles it. She does, but she shouldn't have to handle it alone. Ethan met his eyes. She doesn't. Not anymore. Something shifted in James's expression. Approval, maybe, or just acknowledgement. Good. When Victoria came back out, her face was pale but calmer. He's awake, asking for water, and complaining about the food already. Caroline almost smiled. That sounds like him. He wants to see you, Victoria said to Ethan. Me? Yeah. Ethan followed her back through the double doors, past rooms with beeping machines and sleeping patients. Richard was in the corner unit, propped up on pillows, looking older and smaller than he had at lunch. An IV ran into his arm, monitors tracked his vitals, and the whole setup made Ethan's chest tight. Ethan, Richard's voice was rough but clear. You came. Yeah, of course. Didn't have to. I wanted to. Richard studied him for a moment, then nodded. Thank you. For being here for her. She'd do the same for me. She already did, actually, yesterday with my son. I heard about that. He okay? Yeah. Concussion, but he's fine now. Good. Richard shifted, wincing slightly. Listen, I don't have the energy for long speeches, so I'm going to be direct. You're good for my daughter. I can see that. And she's happy, which is all I've ever wanted for her. She makes me happy too. I know. But this situation, he gestured vaguely at the hospital room, changes things. The company, the ranch, all of it. There's going to be decisions to make, pressure from all sides. It's going to get messy. Most things worth having are messy. Richard almost smiled. Smart answer. He paused, breathing carefully. Take care of her. That's all I ask. I will. After they left the room, Victoria was quiet, walking slightly ahead of Ethan down the corridor. He caught up to her by the elevators. You okay? He asked. I don't know. Seeing him like that... She stopped, shook her head. He's always been this force, you know, bigger than everything, and now he just looks... human? Yeah. The elevator arrived. They stepped in alone, and as the doors closed, Victoria leaned against the wall, eyes closed. I need to go to the ranch, she said. Tomorrow, today, I guess. Figure out what needs to be done. The staff will have questions. The horses need care. There's paperwork. Victoria. And I need to call the office. Let them know I'll be out for a few days. Make sure the VP can handle the client meetings. Victoria. He put a hand on her shoulder. Breathe. She opened her eyes. I don't know how to do this. Do what? All of it. The company, the ranch, taking care of him while he recovers. It's too much. So get help. From who? I don't know. Hire someone for the ranch. Delegate more at work. You don't have to do everything yourself. But I do. That's what being in charge means. No, Ethan said. Being in charge means knowing when to ask for help. There's a difference. The elevator doors opened to the parking garage. They walked to Victoria's car in silence. She unlocked it, but didn't get in, just stood there staring at nothing. Come with me, she said suddenly. To the ranch. What about Dylan? Bring him. There's plenty of space, and he'd probably love it. Horses, land to run around. And She stopped, vulnerable in a way he rarely saw. I don't want to do this alone. Ethan thought about the shop, the appointments he'd need to reschedule, the life he'd have to put on pause. Then he thought about Victoria standing in that hospital hallway, trying to hold everything together with shaking hands. Okay, he said. Yeah, we'll come. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. But I need to check on Dylan first, make sure he's actually okay to travel. Of course. They drove back separately, dawn breaking gray and cold over the highway. Ethan's phone rang as he pulled into his driveway. Marcus. Hey. How is he? Victoria's dad? Stable. Heart attack, but they got to him in time. That's good. How's she holding up? Not great. She asked us to come stay at the ranch while her dad recovers. Help out. Marcus was quiet for a second. You gonna do it? Yeah. That's big, man. You sure Dylan's up for it? I'll check with him, but yeah, I think so. All right, let me know if you need anything. Inside, Dylan was awake on the couch, watching cartoons with Marcus sitting in the recliner half asleep. Dylan's face lit up when he saw Ethan. Dad, you're back! Yeah, buddy. How you feeling? My head still hurts a little, but I'm okay. Marcus stood, stretching. He woke up about an hour ago. Ate some cereal. Seems pretty normal. Thanks for staying. Anytime. Marcus grabbed his keys. Call if you need me. After he left, Ethan sat next to Dylan on the couch. Hey, so I need to talk to you about something. Okay. Victoria's dad is sick. He's in the hospital, and she needs to go take care of some stuff at his ranch. She asked if we'd come stay there for a little while and help out. Dylan's eyes went wide. A ranch? With horses? Yeah. Can I ride them? I don't know. Maybe. But only if the doctor says you're okay to go. We need to make sure your head is all better first. It feels better. I know, but we still need to check. They ended up back at Memorial for a follow-up appointment. The doctor cleared Dylan for travel with strict instructions. No rough play, plenty of rest, someone watching him at all times. Ethan agreed to all of it, and Dylan bounced out of the office talking nonstop about horses and cows and wide-open spaces. They packed that afternoon. Ethan threw clothes in a duffel, grabbed Dylan's stuffed animals and favorite books, called Jake to cancel the week's appointments, feeling guilty but knowing there was no other choice. Jake understood, told him not to worry, that he'd keep the shop running. Victoria picked them up at 5. She looked exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline, but she smiled when Dylan climbed into the back seat chattering about everything he wanted to do at the ranch. The drive took 2 hours. Dylan fell asleep halfway through, and Ethan and Victoria talked quietly, making plans that felt impossible but necessary. "I called a management company," Victoria said. "They're sending someone tomorrow to assess what the ranch needs. Day-to-day operations, staffing, all of it." "That's good. And I talked to my VP. He can handle things at the office for a week, maybe 2. After that, I'll need to go back." "One step at a time." "Yeah." The ranch looked different at dusk, softer, the harsh edges of afternoon sun replaced by golden light that made everything seem almost peaceful. Caroline's car was in the driveway along with 2 others Ethan didn't recognize. Inside, the house was quiet but busy. People moved through rooms with purpose. Caroline in the kitchen making phone calls, James in the study working on a laptop, a woman Ethan didn't know organizing papers in the dining room. "That's Sarah," Victoria said, Dad's assistant. "She's handling the business side of things while he's out." Dylan woke up as they were getting out of the car, groggy and disoriented. Ethan carried him inside, and Caroline immediately directed them to a guest room on the 2nd floor. Spacious, comfortable, with windows overlooking the pastures. "There's a bathroom attached," Caroline said. "Fresh towels in the closet. If you need anything, just ask." "Thank you." "No, thank you for coming, for being here for Victoria." She paused, looking at Dylan. "And for bringing this sweet boy. I think we could all use some light right now." After she left, Ethan got Dylan settled in bed. The kid was out almost immediately, exhausted from the day. Ethan found Victoria downstairs in the living room, standing by the windows, staring out at nothing. "Hey," he said. She turned and he saw the cracks forming. "I don't know if I can do this." "Do what?" "Any of it. The ranch, the company, taking care of him while he recovers. It's too much, Ethan. I'm going to mess it up." He crossed the room, pulled her into his arms. She resisted for a second, then collapsed into him, shaking. "You're not going to mess it up," he said quietly. "And you're not doing it alone. I'm here. Your mom's here. James, Sarah, you've got people. Let them help." "I don't know how." "Then learn." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "How are you so calm about this?" "I'm not. I'm terrified. But freaking out doesn't help Dylan, so I save it for when he's asleep." That got a small laugh out of her. "Smart." They stood there for a moment, and Ethan realized something he'd been avoiding for weeks. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't just dating or seeing where things went. This was real, messy, complicated, and he was in it completely. "I love you," he said, the words coming out before he could stop them. Victoria went still. "What?" "I love you. I've been trying not to say it because it felt too fast, too complicated, but I'm saying it now because I don't want you to think you're alone in this." "You're not." She stared at him, eyes wide, and for a horrible second Ethan thought he'd miscalculated, said too much too soon, ruined everything. Then she kissed him, hard and desperate, and when she pulled back she was crying again. "I love you too," she whispered. "I'm sorry it took almost losing my father for me to say it, but I do. I love you." The next few days blurred together. Richard was moved to a private room, still weak but improving. The management company sent someone, a weathered man named Tom, who knew ranches inside and out. He spent a day walking the property with Victoria, taking notes, making suggestions. By the end of it, they had a plan. Hire 2 full-time hands, bring in a vet to check the horses, update some of the infrastructure that was falling apart. Dylan loved the ranch. He followed Tom around asking questions, met the horses, collected rocks from the pasture. Caroline doted on him, and Ethan found himself having coffee on the porch with her in the mornings while Dylan slept in. "He's a good boy," Caroline said one morning. Thanks. He has his moments. Don't they all? She smiled. Victoria's good with him. I can see it. Yeah, she is. She needs that. Something real, something grounding. She spent so long trying to live up to expectations, she forgot what it's like to just be. I'm trying to remind her. I can tell, and I'm grateful. That afternoon, Victoria got called into a video conference, something urgent at the office. She sat up in Richard's study, door closed, and Ethan could hear her through the walls. Professional, commanding, nothing like the woman who'd broken down in his arms. When she emerged 2 hours later, she looked exhausted. Everything okay? Ethan asked. Just the usual fires. Someone's threatening to pull a contract. Another team missed a deadline. Nothing I can't handle. She rubbed her eyes. I should probably go back to the city tomorrow. Just for a day. Handle things in person. You want company? You should stay here with Dylan. He's having fun. Victoria. I'll be fine, Ethan. It's just one day. But one day turned into 2, then 3. Victoria left Tuesday morning and didn't come back until Thursday night, looking more exhausted than when she'd left. Ethan didn't push, just held her while she collapsed into bed and slept for 10 hours straight. Friday afternoon, Richard came home. The doctor had cleared him for release with strict orders: rest, medication, no stress. Caroline had turned the downstairs guest room into a temporary bedroom so he wouldn't have to deal with stairs. Ethan helped him get settled while Victoria handled a call in the kitchen. Richard looked better than he had in the hospital, but still fragile in a way that was hard to see. Thank you, Richard said once he was in bed, for being here, for taking care of things. Victoria's doing the heavy lifting. I'm just here for support. That's more valuable than you think. He paused, adjusting the pillows. You know she's going to have to make a choice soon. About what? The company, the ranch, this life versus the one she built in the city. Richard met his eyes. I don't want her to choose out of obligation. I want her to choose what makes her happy. Have you told her that? I'm telling you. Maybe it'll be easier coming from you. That night, after Dylan was asleep and the house was quiet, Ethan found Victoria in the barn. She was brushing one of the horses, a chestnut mare with kind eyes, moving the brush in long, rhythmic strokes. Can't sleep? He asked. Too much in my head. He leaned against the stall door, watching her work. Your dad said something interesting today. Yeah, what's that? That you're going to have to make a choice soon, company or ranch, city or this. Victoria's hand stilled. He said that? Not in those words exactly, but yeah. She went back to brushing, not looking at him. I can't just walk away from the company. There are too many people depending on me. You could delegate more. Promote someone to run day-to-day operations. Stay involved but not carry it all yourself. You make it sound easy. I'm not saying it's easy, I'm saying it's possible. She finally looked at him. What do you want me to do? I want you to be happy. That's it. And if I don't know what makes me happy, then figure it out. But don't decide based on obligation or guilt or what you think you're supposed to do. Decide based on what you actually want. Victoria set down the brush, walked over to him. What if what I want is impossible? Try me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I want both. I want to help my parents with the ranch, make sure they're taken care of. But I also want to keep the company running, honor what my father built. And I want you and Dylan and this life we're building together. I want all of it. And I know that's selfish and unrealistic, but it's true. It's not selfish. And maybe it's not as unrealistic as you think. How? Hire Tom permanently. Let him run the ranch day to day. Promote your VP to CEO. Stay on his board chair. You oversee both without killing yourself trying to do everything. And you make time for the rest of it. For us, for yourself, for the life you actually want to live. She stared at him. You really think that could work? I don't know, but it's worth trying. Victoria kissed him then, soft and grateful, and when they walked back to the house hand in hand, something felt settled. Not solved, not perfect, but possible. The next week, things started falling into place. Tom agreed to come on full-time as ranch manager. Victoria's VP, a sharp woman named Angela, who'd been with the company for 15 years, jumped at the promotion to CEO. Victoria would stay involved, handle major decisions, but step back from the daily grind. Richard approved both moves from his bed, relief clear on his face. "You're learning," he said to Victoria. "Finally." Better late than never. Dylan turned 7 the following Wednesday. They had a small party at the ranch, just family. Marcus and Linda driving out with a cake shaped like a dinosaur. Dylan ran around with more energy than should be legal for someone who'd had a concussion 2 weeks earlier, and Victoria organized games that had him and the other kids shrieking with laughter. Watching her with Dylan, the easy way she moved between being an adult and being silly, the way she listened when he talked about his favorite dinosaurs like it was the most important conversation in the world. Ethan felt something lock into place. This was it. This was what he'd been missing without knowing it. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Ethan and Victoria sat on the porch. The stars were out, bright and infinite, and the air smelled like grass and horses and spring. "Thank you," Victoria said. "For what?" "For coming here, for staying, for not running when things got complicated." "Where would I go?" "I don't know. Anywhere easier." "Easier's boring," she laughed, leaning into him. "I'm going back to the city next week just to tie up some loose ends, make sure Angela's settled in. But then I'm coming back here for a while. Maybe a month, maybe longer. I want to make sure Dad's really okay before I—" "You don't have to explain. I get it. You could come with me. To the city. Bring Dylan, stay at my place. It's closer to his school anyway." "You want us to move in?" "Not permanently. Not yet, but yeah, maybe try it out, see how it feels." Ethan thought about his house, his garage, the Chevy sitting half-finished. Then he thought about waking up next to Victoria every morning, about Dylan having her around more, about building something that looked like a real family. "Okay," he said. "Yeah, let's try it." She turned to look at him, surprised. "Really?" "Really." "What about the shop?" "Jake can handle it, and it's only an hour from the city. I can drive back when I need to." Victoria kissed him, and it tasted like hope and possibility, and all the things neither of them had been brave enough to want before. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. And somewhere in the house, Dylan slept soundly, and Richard rested, and Caroline made plans for tomorrow, and James worked on his laptop, and the world kept turning. And for the first time in longer than Ethan could remember, everything felt like it might actually be okay. Moving into Victoria's place felt surreal in ways Ethan hadn't anticipated. The house he'd seen only a handful of times was suddenly home. Dylan's dinosaur toys scattered across the living room floor, Ethan's work boots by the back door, the smell of coffee in the mornings mixing with Victoria's tea. It should have felt temporary, like they were playing house, but it didn't. It just felt right. Dylan adjusted faster than Ethan expected. His new school was closer, smaller, with a playground he declared way better than his old one. He made friends with a kid named Oliver who was obsessed with space instead of dinosaurs, and they spent recesses arguing about which was cooler. Victoria walked him to the bus stop most mornings, and Ethan would watch them from the window, her hand in Dylan's, both of them talking, Dylan's backpack bouncing with each step. The first real fight came 3 weeks in. Ethan had driven back to the shop for the day, handled some jobs Jake couldn't manage alone, and came home to find Victoria on the phone in her office. The door was closed, but he could hear her through it, sharp, frustrated, the voice she used when someone wasn't listening. He made dinner, got Dylan through homework and bath time, put him to bed. Victoria was still on the phone at 9, still there at 10. When she finally emerged at 11, Ethan was on the couch with a beer he hadn't touched. "Sorry," she said, collapsing next to him. That ran way longer than it should have. "What was it?" "Contract dispute. Client threatening to walk, legal team going in circles. I had to step in." "I thought Angela was handling that stuff now." "She is, but some things still need me." Ethan took a drink of his beer. "You've been on the phone every night this week." "I know. It's just a busy period. It'll calm down." "You said that last week." Victoria turned to look at him, something defensive creeping into her expression. "What do you want me to say, Ethan? This is my job. These are my responsibilities. I'm not asking you to quit. I'm asking you to actually step back like you said you would." "I am stepping back." "You're on the phone until midnight every night. That's not stepping back. That's just working from a different location." The silence that followed was sharp, charged with things neither of them wanted to say. Victoria stood, crossed to the window, arms wrapped around herself. I promoted Angela. I hired Tom. I'm doing what I said I'd do. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're still trying to do everything yourself. Because I have to, because if I don't, things fall apart. Or maybe things fall apart because you won't let anyone else hold them together. Victoria spun to face him. You don't get it. You can't just walk away from a company this size. There are people depending on me, thousands of them. Employees, clients, investors. I can't just check out because I'm tired. I'm not asking you to check out. I'm asking you to trust the people you put in charge. I do trust them. Do you? Because it doesn't look like it. The words hung there, too honest, too sharp. Victoria's jaw tightened, and for a second Ethan thought she was going to yell. Instead, she grabbed her keys from the counter. I need to go for a drive. Victoria. I just need space, Ethan. Okay? She left before he could argue, the door closing with careful control that was somehow worse than slamming. Ethan sat there in the quiet house, feeling like he'd just made everything worse. His phone rang. Marcus. Hey, you sound like hell. What happened? Got in a fight with Victoria. About what? Work. She's still doing too much, won't let go. I called her on it and she left. Marcus was quiet for a second. You know what your problem is? What? You're right, and she knows it. That's why she left. That doesn't help me, man. Wasn't trying to help, just telling you the truth. Victoria came back an hour later, eyes red but face calm. Ethan was still on the couch, beer still untouched. I'm sorry, she said from the doorway. Me too. You're right. I'm still trying to do everything and I don't know how to stop. Ethan stood, crossed to her. Then let me help you figure it out. How? I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out together. She kissed him, and it tasted like apology and promise and the beginning of actually dealing with the hard stuff instead of avoiding it. The next morning, Victoria called Angela. Ethan only heard one side of the conversation, but the outcome was clear. Victoria was taking a real step back. No more midnight calls unless it was a genuine emergency. No more micromanaging every decision. Angela was CEO for a reason. Time to let her do the job. It wasn't perfect. Victoria still checked her email obsessively, still had moments where she wanted to jump in and fix things. But she was trying, and that mattered. Richard's recovery continued steadily. He was up and moving by the 4th week, walking the ranch property with Tom, offering opinions that Tom sometimes took and sometimes politely ignored. Caroline reported that he was restless, itching to get back to full speed, but the doctors were firm, 6 months minimum before he could think about resuming normal activities. Ethan brought Dylan back to the ranch on a Saturday. They hadn't been there in 2 weeks, and Dylan had been asking about the horses nonstop. Caroline met them at the door, pulling Dylan into a hug that lifted him off his feet. There's my favorite boy! The horses have been asking about you. Really? Absolutely. Especially Copper. She's been so grumpy without you. Dylan ran off to the barn before Ethan could stop him. Caroline smiled, watching him go. He's good for this place, she said. Brings life back into it. He brings life back into everywhere. That he does. She turned to Ethan. Richard wants to talk to you. He's in the study. Ethan found him there, sitting in a leather chair by the window, reading, glasses perched on his nose, papers spread across the desk. He looked better, color back in his face, movements less careful. Ethan, sit. Ethan sat in the chair across from him, suddenly nervous. This felt formal in a way their previous conversations hadn't. I wanted to thank you, Richard said, setting down his papers. For everything you've done. For Victoria, for being here, for helping with the ranch. You don't have to thank me. I do. Because you didn't have to do any of it. You could have stayed in your lane, kept things simple. But you showed up anyway. She needed me. She did. And you were there. Richard leaned back, studying him. I'm going to ask you something, and I want an honest answer. Okay? What are your intentions with my daughter? The directness of it caught Ethan off guard. He thought about deflecting, making a joke, but Richard's expression said this wasn't the time. I love her, Ethan said simply. I want to build a life with her. I want Dylan to have her in his life. I want all of it, the messy, complicated, hard parts included. Marriage. Eventually, when the time's right. What makes the time right? I don't know. When we're both ready. When it feels like the next step instead of something we're forcing. Richard nodded slowly. You're smarter than you look. Thanks, I think. That was a compliment. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Victoria's been hurt before. Someone who wanted the lifestyle more than they wanted her. It made her cautious, guarded. I know. But she's not guarded with you. I see the way she is around you and Dylan. Lighter, more herself. That's rare. Ethan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Don't screw it up, Richard said, but he was almost smiling. I'll do my best. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Richard pulled out a folder from the desk drawer. I wanted to show you something. Tom and I have been working on expansion plans for the ranch. Nothing major, just some improvements. Thought you might want to take a look, give an opinion. They spent the next hour going through plans, new fencing, updated barn infrastructure, maybe adding some riding trails. Richard valued Ethan's perspective, asked questions about construction and materials, treated him like an equal partner in the conversation. It felt significant in a way Ethan couldn't quite name. When Victoria arrived with lunch, she found them still in the study, papers everywhere, deep in discussion about the merits of steel versus wood fencing. Should I be worried you two are plotting something? She asked. Just ranch business, Richard said. Ethan's got good ideas. Of course he does. She kissed Ethan's cheek. Dylan's helping Caroline make cookies. Fair warning, the kitchen's a disaster. They ate lunch on the porch, sandwiches and fresh lemonade, Dylan chattering about copper and how he'd helped brush her mane. The afternoon sun was warm, the breeze gentle, and for a moment everything felt suspended in something close to perfect. Later, when Richard went down for a nap and Caroline took Dylan to see the new calves, Victoria and Ethan walked the property alone. They ended up by the pond at the far edge of the land, water reflecting the sky in shades of blue and white. My dad likes you, Victoria said. Yeah? Yeah, he doesn't usually warm up to people this fast. Maybe I'm just that charming. She laughed, bumping his shoulder. Maybe. They sat on the dock, feet dangling over the water. Ethan picked up a flat stone, skipped it across the surface. 3 skips before it sank. I've been thinking, Victoria said. About? About what happens next. With us, with everything. Ethan's chest tightened. Okay. I want to split my time. Half the month at the ranch, helping my parents, making sure things run smoothly. Half the month in the city with you and Dylan. Would that work for you? Yeah, I think it would. You sure? Because I don't want you to feel like I'm not committed or... He kissed her, cutting off the spiral. When he pulled back, he kept his forehead against hers. I'm sure. We'll make it work. What about Dylan? The back and forth. Kids are adaptable, and honestly, he loves it here. Having both places might be good for him. Victoria exhaled, relief clear. Okay, good. They sat there until the sun started dropping, painting everything gold and orange. Dylan's voice carried across the pasture, calling for them to come see something. They walked back hand in hand, and Ethan realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this settled. The weeks turned into months. They fell into a rhythm. 2 weeks at the ranch, 2 weeks in the city. Dylan thrived in both places, making friends at both schools, talking about his ranch like he'd lived there his whole life. The Chevy sat in Ethan's garage, still unfinished, but he'd started working on it again. Victoria sometimes sat in the garage with him, reading or just watching him work. And those nights felt like the most honest version of their life together. Richard's health improved steadily. By August, he was back to full activities, walking the ranch every morning, driving into town for coffee, arguing with Tom about fence placement. The scare had changed him, though, made him slower to anger, quicker to laugh, more willing to delegate. One Saturday morning in September, Ethan woke up early at the ranch house. Victoria was still asleep next to him. Dylan crashed in his room down the hall. The house was quiet, peaceful, morning light just starting to filter through the curtains. He got up carefully, trying not to wake Victoria, and went downstairs. Made coffee, sat on the back porch watching the sun come up over the pastures. The horses were already moving in their field, and somewhere a rooster was making noise even though they didn't have roosters. "You're up early." Ethan turned. Richard stood in the doorway, also holding coffee. "Couldn't sleep. Mind if I join you? It's your porch." Richard sat in the chair next to him, both of them looking out at the land in comfortable silence. After a while, Richard spoke. "You know what I was thinking about this morning?" "What's that?" "How different this place feels now. Used to be just me and Caroline rattling around in that big house. Now there's life here again. Dylan running around, Victoria laughing, you fixing things I didn't even know were broken. It's good." "Yeah, it is." "You ever think about making it permanent?" Ethan looked at him. "What do you mean?" "You and Victoria, making it official." "We're pretty official already." "You know what I mean." Ethan did know. He'd been thinking about it more lately. Marriage, making it permanent, giving Dylan the stability of knowing this wasn't temporary. But the timing never felt quite right. "I want to," he said honestly. "Just waiting for the right moment." "The right moment is whenever you decide it is." Richard took a sip of coffee. "But for what it's worth, you have my blessing. Whenever you're ready." "Thanks. Don't screw it up." "You keep saying that." "Because it keeps being true." They sat there until Caroline came down, followed by Victoria, and then Dylan, and the quiet morning dissolved into the comfortable chaos of breakfast and plans for the day. That afternoon, while Victoria was in town with Caroline and Dylan was helping Tom in the barn, Ethan drove to the city. He had a specific errand, one he'd been putting off but couldn't anymore. The jewelry store was small, family-owned, the kind of place that had been there for decades. The owner recognized him from when he'd brought in his mother's watch for repair years ago. "Ethan Cole. Been a while." "Yeah, I need some help with something." "Engagement ring? How'd you know?" The owner smiled. "You got that look. Show me what you're thinking." They spent an hour going through options. Ethan knew what he wanted. Simple, elegant, nothing flashy. Victoria wasn't a flashy person, despite the money. The owner showed him a platinum band with a single diamond. Modest, but beautiful. "This one," Ethan said. "Good choice. Classic. When do you need it?" "Soon. Week or two?" "I can do that." Ethan left with the ring on order and a plan forming. Nothing elaborate, nothing public. Just them, somewhere that mattered. The next week, Ethan told Victoria he wanted to show her something at his house, the one they barely used anymore but still kept. She agreed, curious, and they drove over on a Wednesday evening after dropping Dylan at Marcus and Linda's for a sleepover. "What are we doing here?" Victoria asked as they pulled up. "I finished something. Wanted you to see it." He led her to the garage, hit the button to open the door. Inside, under the shop light, sat the Chevy. Finished. Midnight blue paint gleaming, chrome bumpers polished, white interior pristine. It looked like something out of a magazine, something impossible. Victoria's hand went to her mouth. "Ethan. Took me long enough, right? It's beautiful. Want to go for a drive?" They drove through town, windows down, engine purring. Ethan didn't have a destination in mind, just drove, feeling the work of 2 years humming beneath him. Victoria sat close, hand on his leg, smiling. He ended up at the lake, the same coffee shop where they'd met, now closed for the evening. The parking lot was empty except for a couple of streetlights casting pools of yellow light. "Why here?" Victoria asked. "Seemed right." They got out, walked down to the water. The sun was setting, sky on fire with orange and pink. Ethan's heart was hammering, but he felt calm, clear. "You know what's crazy?" he said. "What?" "I almost didn't show up that day, to the blind date. I was sitting in my truck right over there, ready to bail. I almost didn't come either. I know. You told me." He turned to face her. "But we both showed up, and everything changed." "Yeah, it did." Ethan pulled the ring box from his pocket. Victoria's eyes went wide. "I'm not good at speeches," he said, "and I'm probably doing this all wrong. But I love you. Dylan loves you. You fit into our life like you were always supposed to be there, and I can't imagine it without you anymore." He opened the box. The diamond caught the last rays of sunlight. "Will you marry me?" Victoria was crying, hands over her mouth, nodding before she could speak. "Yes, yes, of course, yes." He slid the ring on her finger, and she kissed him hard, both of them laughing and crying and holding on to each other like they'd never let go. They sat on the dock until the stars came out, making plans that felt impossibly big and perfectly simple at the same time. Small wedding, just family and close friends. Dylan as ring bearer, obviously. Maybe at the ranch, maybe right here by the lake. They'd figure it out. When they finally drove back to pick up Dylan, he took one look at them and grinned. "Did you ask her?" Ethan stared. "How did you—" "Uncle Marcus told me you were gonna. He said I had to keep it secret." "And you did?" "It was really hard." Victoria laughed, pulling him into a hug. "You did good, kiddo." "So you're gonna be my mom now?" Victoria pulled back, looking at Dylan seriously. "I'm gonna be your Victoria. But yeah, I'm gonna be here. Always. If that's okay with you." "It's okay with me." The wedding happened 4 months later, in January, at the ranch. Small like they'd planned. 30 people, maybe. Everyone who actually mattered. Dylan walked Victoria down the aisle because that's what he wanted to do, and she cried through the whole thing. Marcus stood as best man, making a speech that was equal parts inappropriate and touching. Caroline cried. Richard tried not to, but failed. They honeymooned for a week at a cabin in the mountains, just the three of them, because Dylan refused to be left behind. They hiked, made s'mores, played cards by the fireplace. Simple and perfect. When they got back, life resumed its rhythm. Victoria split her time between the ranch and the city, Angela running the company with confidence that kept growing. Tom managed the ranch with an efficiency that let Richard actually relax. Ethan kept the shop going, finally hired a second mechanic to help Jake. Dylan turned 8, then 9. Started asking about getting a horse of his own. Richard said yes before Ethan could even consider saying no. And Dylan spent every weekend at the ranch learning to ride, mucking stalls, becoming the kind of kid who smelled like hay and horses and didn't care. 2 years after the wedding, Victoria came home from a doctor's appointment with news that made Ethan's chest tight in a completely different way. She showed him the ultrasound picture, hands shaking, and he pulled her close. "We're having a baby?" "Yeah." Dylan was ecstatic. He immediately started planning how he'd teach his little sister or brother everything important: dinosaurs, horses, how to skip rocks. Victoria glowed through the whole pregnancy, even when she was exhausted and uncomfortable and swearing she'd never do this again. Their daughter was born in September, 8 pounds exactly, with Victoria's eyes and Ethan's stubborn chin. They named her Sarah, after Victoria's friend who'd set them up in the first place. Dylan held her in the hospital room, careful and gentle, and declared her perfect. Life got messier after that. Sleepless nights, diapers, the chaos of a newborn mixing with a 9-year-old's energy. But it was good chaos, the kind that meant life was full. The Chevy sat in the garage most days now, only coming out for special occasions. Ethan kept it pristine, taught Dylan how to change the oil, promised that someday it would be his. Dylan said he wanted a truck instead, and Ethan said they'd cross that bridge when they got there. On a Sunday morning, 3 years after Sarah was born, Ethan woke up in the ranch house to the sound of kids laughing downstairs. Dylan was 12 now, all legs and attitude, but still soft around his little sister. Sarah was 3, fearless, following her brother everywhere despite his protests. Victoria was already up, making coffee in the kitchen, Sarah attached to her leg like a barnacle. Dylan sat at the table drawing something elaborate. A spaceship, maybe, or a robot, hard to tell. Ethan poured himself coffee, kissed Victoria's shoulder, ruffled Dylan's hair despite the protest, and scooped Sarah up into his arms. "Morning, Trouble." "I'm not trouble, Dylan's trouble." "Hey!" "Both of you are trouble," Victoria said, smiling into her coffee. Through the window, Ethan could see Richard and Caroline walking the property, Tom talking with them about something. The horses moved in their pastures, the sun climbed higher, and the day stretched ahead with nothing urgent demanding attention. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. There were still arguments about work-life balance, still moments when the weight of everything felt too heavy, still days when Ethan wondered how he'd gotten so lucky and feared it couldn't last. But they kept showing up, kept choosing each other, kept building this messy, complicated, beautiful life one day at a time. Marcus called later that morning, asking if they were still coming to the barbecue. Ethan said yes, they'd be there, and hung up to find Victoria watching him from across the kitchen. "What?" he asked. "Nothing. Just thinking about how different things are now. Good different? Yeah, really good different. Dylan groaned from the table. Are you guys going to be gross? Probably, Ethan said. Definitely, Victoria added. Sarah squealed with laughter, and Dylan rolled his eyes but was smiling, and outside the ranch, sprawled under a clear sky, and somewhere in the city, Angela was running a company that didn't need constant oversight, and the shop was running smooth with Jake and the new guy handling things, and everything that had seemed impossible 4 years ago had somehow become their everyday reality. What began as a reluctant blind date, two people almost too scared to show up, had become this: a family, a life. Something neither of them had been looking for, but both had found anyway. For a single father who almost didn't show up, and a CEO who'd forgotten what it meant to just be herself, they'd found exactly what they'd been missing all along. Not perfection, not easy, just real, just right, just theirs. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.